How Native American diets shifted after European colonization. Native Americans ate both cultivated and wild foods. Of course, they varied depending on the region, but there were many similarities. Seeds, nuts, and corn were ground into flour. The flour was used to bake bread and make mush. Common vegetables included corn, beans, chili, and squash. Foods that could be dried were stored for later use. Up to 90% of the Pueblo diet consisted of agricultural foods. Wild fruits, greens, nuts, and small game made up the balance. But large game was scarce in the Southwest, so textiles and corn were traded with the Plains Indians for bison meat. Corn, beans, and squash were called the Three Sisters by many tribes. These were the pillars of the Native American diet. Some tribes considered them a sacred gift from the Great Spirit. Together, the plants provide complete nutrition. But in the 15th century, things started changing. European settlers brought with them their own food customs. They also brought new and unfamiliar foods. These included sheep, goats, cattle, and pigs. Peaches, apricots, plums, and cherries were introduced. Melons, watermelons, apples, and grapes also came from Europe. Wheat became the new desirable crop. Spanish sheep changed the lifeways of the Navajo. Sheep flocks became central to Navajo culture. Newborn lambs were brought into the house when it was cold. They were fed by hand. Sheep are still a sign of wealth in some communities. They can be given as a bridal gift to a woman's family. In 1803, frontiersmen started moving west. This was traditionally Indian country. Congress initiated the Federal Indian Removal Act of 1830. More than 100,000 Native Americans were evicted to Oklahoma. This disrupted traditional Native food ways. It also deprived the Native Americans of familiar food sources. During the forced relocations, new foods were distributed to tribes. These were bi-weekly government-issued rations. They originally included lard, flour, coffee, sugar, and canned meat. This food distribution program proved fateful. It completely changed Native American diet. Ironically, the program was meant to be an interim solution. The relocated Indians were expected to become self-sufficient. Instead, many of them became dependent on the rations. Some tribes initially abandoned their traditional practices. However, the government-issued rations were insufficient, so they had to improvise. The taco was developed as a creative solution. It combined government-issued rations with traditional foods. Wheat flour, baking powder, lard, and processed cheese came from the rations. They're still issued to families on reservations. Beans, wild game meat, green chilies, and tomatoes were familiar staples. The Indian taco is thus a relative newcomer, but it has become indispensable at powwows and community events. Tacos are served both on reservations and in urban areas. Of course, the process worked both ways. European cuisines have been transformed by American foods. It's hard to imagine Italian food without tomatoes. Peppers, maize, cacao, zucchini, and eggplants are all New World products.